Start having kids and getting married and going different directions. The finding other bike friends, all of a sudden you have a period where you're isolated, like before your boy got his bike, when you kept bringing your bike. Because I had that story in New York, and my brother mailed me a bike. And it's like, but then when you find other bikes to ride with, you're like, I don't have the words, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, oh, this is great. You know? Especially if everyone can ride at the same speed and keep up.
We had Amper, bringing up Amper, he did the ride to Oceans, the first Oceanside ride. Now that's a hallmark of the ride.
I've been the monkey.
Yeah. That didn't sound great, but
that was the hardest ride.
Yeah. But we did that where we got on the train. Everybody back then, everybody piled on the train. I mean, if dudes were, like Cheech and some other dudes smoking in between cars, it was just straight crazy chaos. Went down there, had an awesome ride. They had a band because one of the dudes played. There was a couple dudes that got together that played instruments. I mean, it was just
Amper treated the whole ride to pizza in the park. Yeah,
back then, same thing. Yeah, popsicles, I think it was, but it was.
Yeah, we had those too.
It was just so many good times, And in that era, I gotta say, like I said, it defined my 30s and was some of the best times of my life, and it's some of the best camaraderies that I have of my life. So that it started to change once I had a son, and I started to change. Not so much the ride, but then I started to change, and then I would always get so, oh man, too many hills. There's always people.
You're the one that became different. Like
you're always you're like a chef, and you're bringing out food, and everybody at the table. Most of the people are like, damn man, I'm stuffed. That was great. And then you always got one guy going, was that gluten free? Was it,
You became the gluten free guy?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
No, they were yelling that to me because I made the meal.
Okay.
Was I'm saying was like the meal.
Oh, and they were saying too many hills to you.
Too many. They're like, dude, so you would always have these guys, man, too many stops, or man, this, this, we shouldn't have done that. Next time, can't we do this? So, in the beginning, I would always be like, almost like a question box, like a suggestion box, like, okay, I'll take that into account.
Yeah, you can't please 450 people at the same time.
But that started to wear on. And once I started to kind of, once my son started to come around, and my son, I always tell people, my son got past the goalie. I wasn't planning on having 6 months before I had my son. My mom was like, Noah, am I ever going to have a grandchild?
You're like, no.
I said, don't hold your breath. Exact words. Don't hold your breath. And somehow she rubbed some kind of thing, belly, something. And boom, he got past the goalie, and all of a sudden I'm going to have a kid. When I started having a kid, all my energy that I have in my body, I started to understand that there wasn't unlimited, that this energy there was only so much energy that I had. And
the ride was probably...
That I started to realize how much energy the ride was taking.
It was the kid while you were...
It was a transition in my life. It wasn't so at that point I started to kind of get, and then I have felt like I had always been there. When I finally started to come to the realization that it's time for the ride to kind of come to an end, that I felt like a sunrise and a sunset. Mind you, at this time, other rides started popping up, really good rides. All those rides that you're talking about in the beginning of
you were still around when those started?
Most of them. And they started up, and there's some really good alternatives now. It's not not just the 4130 is the only thing going. So there was other stuff going. I started to think to myself, look, maybe I'll just do 3 rides a year. Maybe we'll just do like Magic Johnson, have a summer nights,
Right. One thing I have to say as a rider, though, is consistency is one of the most important factors of the ride.
But there's all these other rides. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. No, I don't mean, but yeah, even if that was consistent, but once they're in place, I just don't want them to change.
We'll see. And so
you shouldn't have to look at Instagram to know if your all the time ride is still there.
So this is where, so I was getting ready to say, look, let's make Hollywood. We'll just blow it out as the mega ride, a few times a year. And that's what I have energy for. Right. And that's what my vision was going toward. And I had done all this groundwork for the ride.
You got too many people excited and happy.
So what ended up, but the people closest to me were like, no. And I'm no. You can't do that. And it's like, what are you talking about? I can't do that. The ride's right here. It's my house. You know? And it's like, I made up to everything. Why can't? No, you can't. Everyone. And it's like, dude, I can do whatever. You know, it's like, you know, if I say it's not going to be a ride, then there ain't going to be no ride. And these guys are like, no, there will be a ride. Well, I'm like, we're starting to get into this little thing. And it's like, to give the ride to this, give the ride to that. And I'm like, fuck no, no, man. I have a vision now, and the vision's changing. There's other rides out there.
Right.
So in the beginning, I was being my rigid dick self. I was like, no. But at the same time, I felt I had a reason to be that way because this was my little baby that I felt that I put in blood, sweat, and tears. Remember the story I told you in the beginning. This ride defined my 30s. This ride, I was completely immersed in this ride.
Right.
And everything about this ride had something to do with something that I had made up or thought about or did. So just giving it to somebody else was like, that don't even make sense. And being from a huge follower of graffiti, being a huge follower of hip hop, you know, I started thinking, man, these guys, man, like I wanted them to be more, if someone wanted to start a ride, they could have started their own ride. That's how I thought. If someone's looking at me going, no, you can't do this. No, you know what? There's a huge vacuum. There's going to be so many people that want to ride. Well, what I'll do is I live over here. I'm going to start a ride over here. And I'm going to invite all these people over here. And now there's another ride. But no, they wanted to start the ride where I started the ride. They wanted to call the ride what I called the ride. They wanted, you know, and and at the time I got it. But at the same time, I was like, man, these guys are bikers. Like they can't think of their own shit. They can't even come up with their own.
I knew this moment was going to come up in the thing. And on one level, as a comic, like you see other people take your jokes and you're like, fuckers. And then on another level, I wanted to tell you, because I knew you were going to say this though, is all these guys, and because before I even met you, I'd already heard about you and the word inspired, which I think is like a corny word, but since I hear it from a bunch of tough guys that ride bikes, it's not as corny. But that's what I wanted to tell you, even though we're ready for the rest of the story. Like you inspired so many people with your ride that I don't think well, I don't know what you realized and didn't realize, but whether you knew it or not, that ride that you made had given so many people, you know, a foundation of their month and something to that, like,
you're right.
Even if you had grown out of it or your kid, whatever, for whatever reason, they couldn't give up what you'd created for them. You know,
it took me time. It took me a long time because I am stubborn. To let that sink in. Everybody's told me the same thing. Like not everybody, but a lot of people that I've really pressed about it have told me the same thing that you just mentioned. And it's very much and now that I'm a few years off of it and that I moved out of Hollywood, I felt when I'm just recently moved out of Hollywood, I felt such a sense of pride, over the fact that I left the ride behind. Hollywood's a big pond. Right? No, don't let anybody. I mean, it is kind of a small town in a sense. If you live there, you know it's a small town. But when you go there, people don't survive there. It chews you up and spits you out.
It's true.
So being able to survive there was one thing, but being able to leave there and leave something there that I started. Yeah. That's still in Hollywood. That's still a part of the people see it go down the boulevard and whatnot. That was so it became a part of pride, but I wasn't in the beginning feeling that. I was like, I understand. So I had kind of lost a few friends over that because they were willing to let the ride lose the friends with me. And I started realizing that, man, a lot of people weren't really friends with me. Like they liked the idea of being friends with the guy who started the ride more so than Noah, you know, than dealing with shit that Noah has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Okay. If it was like guys would sleep on my couch. I mean, every ride come over. And then when I felt like I was in a hard time, like nowhere to be found, you know what I mean? And not that they were even in a hard time, I guess, but guys that would just sleep on my couch and guys that come over and guys going through divorces. And the one in particular, you know, my client, my dog walking client at the time was Iggy Azalea. And I never would ask her for anything. Never. My buddy's going through a divorce. His kid likes Iggy Azalea. So I'm going to go to Iggy Azalea and ask him for an autograph for his daughter because I'm really trying to be a friend, you know? And again, I would have never done that for my son. I don't even care if it was a Star Wars. I was walking Chewbacca's dog.
Dude, it's weird that you said that. My dad got me Chewbacca. Oh no, Chewbacca was so sweaty, the actor, when he was signing the autograph, that my dad didn't ask for me and my brother because somebody else had signed.
Is that Kevin McHale?
Yo, no, I don't know who the actor was.
But anyways, no. So these are things I did. So when it came around the backside where I was going through this transition and fuck, dude, my buddy Boston in Boston will tell you, I was a nervous wreck when I found out I was having a kid. I still am. You know, to be worthy enough to be a father is one of the biggest responsibilities in the world. So
I'm not one.
I've never felt that I've never felt secure in that. So it's always been, I've always needed the village to help me, prop me up to be the father that I need to be for my son.
Right.
So in those times, I had buddies, they weren't there. And then I started realizing, okay, then you get to a point where who are your real friends, you know?
Right.
And that was kind of getting into an area where it's like, all right, now I'm thinking about the ride. Before,
plus
everybody was,
even aside from the ride, all those things you're mentioning just happen in life at that age anyway.
So I was a transition. So I ended up starting to make the real decision to end the ride and put the final date on it and had the final ride and did that and felt good about it. And then the thing I got to say about Cheech is that out of all those people that were the closest to me, Cheech included, that were eyeing the ride, for whatever reason, multiple reasons, some of the reasons you're talking about, some of the reasons maybe a little more selfish.
Right.
They're eyeing the ride. They ended up, Cheech was the one that handled it, in my eyes, correct. He let me vent. He let me go through my stages of grief. He let me deal.
Yeah, that's a big part.
You know, he let me deal, and then he was right there to, like, when I was ready, he was right there with his hands out, and he took the ride. And like I said, now I'm proud about the ride still going. It's nothing the same. I still have some qualms about it, like they shouldn't. You know, they could have changed the name. They could change some of the, you know, the artwork. They're still using artwork that I mean, it goes back to petty, like, you know, cover band shit. You know, it's like do you want to go see Led Zeppelin or do you want to go see Led Zepp again? You know, and it's like, I want to go see Led Zeppelin, you know, and it's like, and now you got Led Zepp again, you know, so it's kind of the cover band thing. But
you even come out for some rides though. You still.
So I have a great, so basically my life has changed completely. It's as it was when I led the ride. When I led the ride, I managed a 40-unit building, 1920s building in Hollywood. I had been in Hollywood for about 10, 15 years through that period. Well-rooted, lots of friends in the middle of the city, the belly of the beast, helicopters circling overhead, sirens, you know, people screaming, the whole bums, everything, the whole nine.
Not here.
And I was turning me into a New Yorker. And so I was getting like, fuck you, fuck. And I'm already like that. So it's, you know, it's making it kind of hard on me. So I said, you know what? Around this time I needed a change. And I ended up getting a cabin up in the mountains. And I had it for a year and I was weekending, coming up here on the weekends and going back to LA every week to work. And this dude up here, totally fucking random. We have outhouses. That's how remote we are. We're right on a creek.
He came to the mountain to I'm here. Trust me, the road we just drove down, like, I didn't even want to drive down.
Dude, this is straight Alaska, Colorado, you know, straight up. So
I'm still scared of getting back out of here.
So we end up, I'm back here. This dude pulls out a 1992 Robinson Cruiser out of his outhouse.
Wait, let me just re-stress. He did tell me someone, okay, we really are in a cabin, like in the woods where you wouldn't even expect a street BMX bike at all. And like, we're in the boon, dock, mountain. Okay.
Right. So my immediate neighbor pulls out a chrome 1992 Robinson Cruiser.
Didn't even know who you were though.
Didn't know who I was. Didn't know I have the same exact bike. And I said, oh shit, man, look at that. We start chucking it up. He said, oh, my son took it to college and I got it back and blah, blah, blah. I love bikes. And I tell him about the ride and he's like, dude, let's go. So he takes me down. He starts getting me out to the ride and it felt good because honestly, I wouldn't have gone back, you know, if it wasn't for new blood like that, some fresh blood going, feeling that like.
Obviously, you were meant to go back if some random dude in the mountain has a matching
Well,
bike
yeah,
with you.
but it was just that
You know,
fresh blood of him, like, let's go, let's do this adventure. What are we? What? These
That's how
guys
it started.
are you telling me these guys are riding their bikes down in Hollywood through the streets? Like, I'm up for it. And I was like, let's do it. So pull up. So he takes me down, and so it's been nice. And getting down there, then getting there feels great because then I see some of the guys, and it's like, oh man, fuck, how's the family? And it's nice catching up, and it's nice, you know. But then at the same time, I also it's weird because the bickering still goes on because I'm still, buddies with Cheech. So I hear a lot of you mentioned earlier, dude, this group of guys, you got these guys tattooed down. These guys look like, these guys look like they might have just gotten out of prison, and like in prison, you're not supposed to talk any politics, So you look at these guys, man, that guy probably don't say nothing. And then he'll just start talking like a Yenta in from New York, just gossip queen.
Well, it's like Pulp Fiction. It's like a bunch of like old school gangsters, but everything is drama, right?
Straight gossip, and that stuff still goes on. I hear, and I still come up. It's like, so it's nice. The thing about the ride I see now is
but I've told you come up, but you've never come up from gossip. You come up from people telling the stories of how it all started. Yeah.
But no, I hear the other side, like, no one ever told me to turn down my music and, shit like that. I was like, oh, whatever. But
that's just guys being goofballs.
Exactly. But it's the gossip thing. And the fact that it gets back to me is the gossip thing. So it's still, that stuff. So
we got a lot of loud music
with the ride. When I go back, I'm very, and I can't say it enough. The ride defined my 30s. I've had some of the best. If I was to write a list of the 10 best things that's ever happened to me in my life, there would be a few things of the ride on that list. I mean, it's been a huge part of my life, a wonderful thing. But when it was over, after I went through my grief period of everything, when I'm going back to it, it was almost like if you ever had this experience of having a girlfriend and you break up with the girlfriend, and you break up with her, but then there's a couple nights you're kind of lonely, you're out drinking, you're like, you can't find it, you get a little desperate, you're like, damn, you think of the old times, like, fuck, man. But then you end up running into the girlfriend, and she's with the new dude, and she's doing the same crap that drove you nuts, and you're like, oh, he can have her, you know what I mean? It's like, so there's a bit of that there. So it's nice to go out and not feel any responsibility, not feel any kind of bad feelings, but just be able to go, oh, that's good for them. They got their ride. They got the walkies, it's interesting. I kind of did the ride. I did have help, but I mean, to see what they have now, safety crews, and they don't go down 6th Street. I mean, it's evolved huge than what it was. It's not even, it's in a lot of ways, it doesn't even resemble the ride in a lot of ways, but what they've done with it, I go out, it's still a good time, still socially, everybody's having a good time, it's fantastic. So I'm extremely happy about how I went through ups and downs mentally myself, but as soon as I came out the end of the canyon, I feel good about everything, and I'm glad that you guys are still riding.
Yeah, well, one of the good things about the BMX rides is it's the only place where people don't get annoyed if you incessantly talk about BMX bikes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, because if you're with your regular friends going on about your bike, they're like, see ya. But if you're at a ride,
and these guys are literally, there's a lot of guys at the ride that have their like relationships in jeopardy because they're just like buying bikes, Yeah,
well,
it's a good
but some of the guys have families and they get to buy more bikes secretly for themselves, for their wives and kids.
Well, that too.
Yeah, no.
I hear what you're saying. So it's the ride. I mean, I can't say it, and dude, being that moniker, the mayor of Hollywood, brings so much pride. I had the Facebook page with 4,500 friends. I had decent relationships with people all over the world. It was a time that was incredible for me. And I look back at those people and those times with the most fond memories. But it's just, I feel now, this life now with the cabin and doing what I do now has taken some of that void of energy, and is what I've kind of ended up doing more so. And now, instead of falling in love, I've always fallen in love with sounds. First, it was the sound of a swish, Then it was a sound of a freewheel. I even like sounds of home runs hitting the bat, sounds of guys
And what do you
hitting.
like now?
Now I like the sounds of my feet walking on the trail, the rhythm of me going up the trail with my dogs
I filmed myself.
panting.
I filmed myself coming in here before you saw me, and I said, you know, every great story about the origin of something, and every movie and every fable, some guy has to go to the mountain to get the answers from the guy that started it. We really are. Nobody named the mayor of Hollywood you would ever expect to find them here. I know I wouldn't, and especially not after just hearing about him in my hat, and here we are now.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are with Noah, and you've actually escaped Hollywood in the ride, but you still come visit sometimes.
And I do. I love, and I'll be back, and you'll see everybody at the ride.
And also with all the PKs and, you know, the PKs, the Todd Lyons, the Greg Hills, all the 80s BMX riders that we talk about, you know, we got to give it up to Noah Benjamin, the mayor of Hollywood, because you're like a Fast Eddie Felson in the BMX world. You're like the guy who wins the tournaments in the back room. Like, you're just as big a part of BMX as all the magazine photos.
I
You know?
I appreciate. Thank you for saying that. I don't necessarily think that's that much, but I definitely feel happy and proud for bringing everybody together and letting people that were those guys that looked up to those guys ride with those guys. And that I was one of those guys, and that it was fantastic to be able to ride with Greg Hill, ride with Scott Bridehop, become friends with Scott Bridehop, hang out with Perry, know Perry on a personal level. I mean, this all stuff was really awesome.
Yeah, the magazine you looked at when you were a kid, you went inside that magazine in your adult life.
So I mean, it's
All right.
definitely, it's going to be it's going to keep a smile on my face, a twinkle in my eye, and you know, and for a long period, for the rest of my life, because that was a fun time. And anybody, guys, they still meet up. Look for them, the 4130 Subway Series. They travel a lot now, but you can find them, I think, on Instagram. Where's their best?
Yeah, 4130 Subway Series, 41 Thursday. Both are on Instagram. This is the Race BMX show, which was inspired by 41 Thursday and 4130 Subway Series, which was invented by this man. So this is I don't know which season for you this represents, but I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
And for all you that watch that are on the scene, thanks for coming out. And, you know, we're hitting up everybody now. Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
All right.